There's no need to struggle any longer with your living room layout. In fact, I'm going to teach you the best 5 layouts on YouTube and what you can do right now in your home to make your room look absolutely elevated just by following one of these 5 steps. Follow me.
And since so many of you ask, today I am wearing a crisp white shirt from Brooks Brothers. Everything will be linked in the description section, so you can go right to it. In addition, I'm wearing pants from Neely Lotan. My shoes are Prada. My earrings are Anthropologie. And that's it. If you have questions regarding how to specifically design your room, or you need help with your layout or anything else, you can certainly book a Zoom session with me through the expert. All you have to do is click the Zoom link in the description section and it'll make an appointment right for you. The very first layout is not for the faint of heart. It is the one that is probably most challenging, but it is the most elevated, shall we say. Take a look at this particular layout. You're going to notice that there are 2 identical sofas that, instead of facing each other, are basically butting up to one another from back to back. And this particular scenario allows you to create a more expansive space, a more hotel lobby-esque type of space. Now, don't worry, we are not just going to look at gigantic rooms that are, out of this world. We are going to look at all types of layouts that are going to work for your space. And we're even going to look at small space layouts that are really fantastic. What the back-to-back sofa allows you to do is create 2 separate events in one room. So by that I mean, perhaps all the girls want to congregate to one area and all the men to another, or whatever the scenario may be. This particular layout allows you, I call this the hotel lobby layout. It allows you to be able to do that, because once you create this double scenario, it is great, by the way, for a very, very large room. You are really able to section off 2 areas in one room but make it look very homogeneous. Here we have, as you can see, the red velvet sofas. This is Naomi Watts' apartment that was featured in Architectural Digest a few years ago, where the focus of the room really is that vibrant red. And of course, the sofas are in that color. And I just think that this is a really great way of dividing a space that will allow you to have multiple scenarios where perhaps kids are on one side, adults are on the other side, or anything else that you can think of. In this case, you definitely need to have 2 sort of different setups. If you have identical sofas, you can't have the rest mimic each other because it just looks too mirror-like, if that makes sense. So on one side, you're going to have a different coffee table. Perhaps on the right side, you're going to have, a glass coffee table. And on the left side, you're going to have an ottoman coffee table. You're going to have different chairs on each side. You want to mix it up, have a thread of continuity, but definitely cannot mimic the exact same setup on both sides. The next setup is exactly the opposite of what we just talked about. Now you've got 2 sofas that are looking at each other. They are parallel to one another, and they're center stage in the room. I particularly love this setup. I think it's very doable for many people. For those of you who have difficulty doing design or can't commit to a certain look or feel or don't know what to do, buying 2 sofas that are identical and having them face one another is really an easy task, and it looks very good. Additionally, depending on the size of the room, you can keep expanding. So you can really bring your grouping of your sofa in the middle of the room. If you have more space, you can create various areas on the outskirts of that room. That is a great way to be able to furnish a large room and create different sitting areas. If you look to the top right or to the left, you've got 2 club chairs and a table. Perhaps you could do a backgammon table there or some kind of card table. On the right, you have a seating area next to a window. Whatever the room dictates, the idea is that the center of the room is full with the sofas, and then the outskirts, you are having different little smaller vignettes. If you look at this Parisian apartment, you will note that there are 2 identical sofas that are facing each other. Now, the sofas could be, let's say you have a right arm that's facing a left arm. So if you've got 2 Kagan sofas that are serpentine, they can have the opposite serpentine shape and they can mirror one another, if that makes sense. Or you can just do identical sofas. You also have, a beautiful coffee table in the middle. You've got the fireplace that's center stage that's in between the two sofas. If you've got this layout, this is a really great way of incorporating the two sofa look. And then I love popping in one architectural chair. As you can see, the black leather chair, the mid-century chair that's in this room looks fantastic. And then perhaps having an old school credenza mixed with this beautiful symmetrical sofa situation really comes together beautifully. In this particular layout, as you can see, we've got two curved sofas that are facing each other. This is also a no-brainer. If you are at a loss as to what to do, find curved sofas, have them face one another, throw in a round rug. You cannot go wrong with this look. I think it's spot on. The next layout, number 3, is the single sofa double chair layout. This is a very traditional layout, but it works, and it works well. It works well because of the fact that one sofa sometimes is enough in a room that is not that large in scale, and you don't want it to feel heavy. So if you want a room to feel less heavy, a little bit less formal, this is a great layout. I would do one sofa, and then I would have two chairs that are facing this large sofa. This could be a 2-seater, a 3-seater. Typically a 3-seater would look better. And then you can have fun and pick two crazy chairs, or make sure the chairs, though, in this case, are identical. If you want to have different chairs, then that's a whole different layout. But in this case, if you're going to have them positioned the way that you see in this photograph, you have to make certain that they are identical. Here's a great example of what I'm talking about. You have a 3-seater sofa that's in coffee colored, and then opposite the sofa, you've got two club chairs that are white and fresh and different. I like having a little differentiation between the sofa and the chairs. You do not want them to be of the same set. I think it looks a lot better and a lot more elevated if you've got two different types of periods that are mixed in well. You guys know I love mixing my periods. That is the trick to interior design. And if you have two beautiful vintage chairs that you love, that you've collected, as I do here with my Zanusos, put those in. Another great tip in this scenario is that because you're going to have less seating, as you don't have two sofas facing each other, you essentially have 3-seater plus two people sitting in front of you. That makes it a 5-person room. You're going to want to bring in some cute ottomans. If you pop in some ottomans, they don't even have to be laid out as the photos laid out. They can basically be sporadic, any part of the room. And then people can bring up that seating, bring up a little poof next to whatever area or whatever person they want to speak to. And this allows for a great party gathering and will allow for great conversation. Sectionals, I knew you guys would ask, so I do have a sectional specifically for you. Now, I know, and I've said this before, we cannot lean our sofas against the wall. That is the worst possible crime. However, if you have a sectional and you need to create an ambiance in that room, and your room is small, we can make an exception. Now, I still like to leave it a little bit away from the walls. I would not have it touching the walls. I would still have some space, some breathing room, but essentially the idea is you've got a sectional in one corner. You have a coffee table that is either round or rectangular that fits the sectional the way that the sectional is designed. And then you can create lots of other little vignettes that will allow you to have separate conversations in a room. Remember, it's very important to have balance and scale in a room. That's why these layouts are so important. Take time in looking at them, observing them. Find what it is about this layout that works and just try and mimic it. If you've got a love seat right now, or if you've got a sectional and you don't feel like your room is coming together, move it around. Just put it in another corner or move it to one side or the other. You cannot believe the amount of times that I have gone to clients' homes, and by just moving some pieces around, we have transformed that space. Here's an example that I think is perfect of a sectional. Now, in this case, you see that it is away from the walls slightly. You've got a credenza behind the sofa. I prefer it this way, if room permits. If your room is small and you live in an apartment or in a small city, you're going to want to, of course, push your sectional to the wall. Not touching, at least give it a little breathing room, but this is a great scenario. Something else you can do with a sectional that you can't do with most sofas is that you can divide a room. A lot of great rooms exist where kitchens are open to the living room, etc. Kitchens are open to family rooms, and you want to sort of define the spaces without partitioning the spaces per se. And this is the way you do it. You float your Mario Bellini sectional right in front of what would have been, or what is the kitchen, and you create a sectional situation that really defines the new space that you have in front of your kitchen. This is not only a great way to do it, but this is actually looks amazing, quite elevated, and it allows you to be able to have, you know, a larger seating area for more people. Sectionals tend to be for family rooms because of the fact that they require a lot of seating, and this is a great example of how to do it. As promised, we are going to look at the small space layout, which works time and time again. You're going to need a sofa, most likely, because you want to get maximum seating. And all you have to do, again, is float it. You can float it in a very small space. You do not need to push it up against the wall under any circumstance, even in a small space, because you've now created a living room that perhaps didn't exist and won't look like a pathway. The problem with pushing your furniture to the walls is that that room becomes a hallway or a pathway. This is a small apartment. You can tell the door swings basically into the furniture. And the reason that that is probably because there's really no other way to do this room. And a lot of people have this particular layout and don't think about doing it this way. This is a great way to float your sofa, and this is how it's not going to look cluttered. Instead of having your coffee table in front of your sofa, I recommend getting a coffee table ottoman, like a duo, that you can push to one side so that if you need to have a little bit more of a breathing space, you can, and you can incorporate it when you need to or move it to the corner when you don't need it. So this is very versatile. And you can also have a pair of chairs that are sporadically placed in the room. If your chairs are interesting enough and they are not necessarily together, you can have one in one corner as you see in this room, or one in another corner. This is really a great layout. I urge you to try it if you've got 2 chairs and a sofa and a small space, and I'm dying to know how it turns out. Here's a perfect example of what I was talking about. You've got your sofa that is pretty large. You can actually go larger on that piece because of the fact that that is really your only seating, and then you've got 1 chair perhaps to the left. This is a great way to do it. The door is behind your head, and people can come in and out as they need to, but then the room feels great because it's facing a fireplace. It's facing an area that's important, a focal point. So this is a lovely way of doing the layout. Instead of what most people would do would be to shove the sofa right below the window, put a coffee table in front of it, not centering it with the fireplace. I see this time and time again, and I'm going to urge you to move your sofa and take the risk. Here's another example I wanted to point out. You don't have to have a credenza behind the coffee table. You can have a bench. This can lead into the room. So you're not walking into the sofa, you're walking into a room. And what you're seeing is the glimpse of a sofa. You're looking into the horizon. You're finding your focal point, which in this case is this beautiful fireplace. And then you are bringing in beautiful elements, whether it's a plant on the left or a beautiful chair in the corner. This is definitely a home run. Which of these 5 layouts do you prefer? Are you going to actually move your furniture after seeing this YouTube? I want to know. Thank you guys for joining me on this episode. I hope this was helpful. The idea is to repurpose the things that you do own, change layouts of things that you thought were no longer useful, and just bring beauty into your home. That is really my joy and my way of sort of giving back to you and gifting you perhaps a different vision or a different way to look at things. Most of us crave change. We get tired of the same thing, but we end up not touching our homes after we've placed our furniture one time. Why not make the effort, move things around, play a little bit with your particular layouts, and create the home that you deserve? Again, thank you for being a subscriber. Thank you for being a loyal follower. I love you guys. I read all your comments, and I can't wait to see you next week on the Red Elevator.